Lawsuit has been filed against the Department of Veterans Administration regarding discrimination against black vets. According to the lawsuit, the VA has systematically denied African American soldiers a variety of benefits, including housing, education, and disability benefits, since the adoption of the 1944 GI Bill. A federal judge has rejected the government's effort to dismiss this case. Joining us right now is a former U.S. Marine, Conley Monk Jr., the National Veterans Council for Legal Redress. I'm sorry. First of all, the former U.S. Marine, Conley Monk Jr., and the National Veterans Council for Legal Redress, they filed the lawsuit. He was exposed to Agent Orange and suffered PTSD resulting from his experiences in Vietnam. His suit claims that he was denied veterans unemployment insurance in 1971, education benefits in 76, disability in 81, and a home loan in 1983. The pattern of rejection continued in 2010 and 2012 when he was denied veterans disability benefits after suffering a stroke. OLu Oisaghie is a Yale law student working with the Veterans Legal Services Clinic. He joins us now from New Haven, Connecticut. So first and foremost, OLu, give us an understanding of how expansive this is of the VA essentially discriminating against black folks who put their lives on the line for this country.
Yeah, so this is a very big deal. Stretching back, as you mentioned, as far as the 1944 GI Bill, the VA has been discriminating against black veterans in giving them the benefits that they are due for their time spent serving this country. And the plaintiffs that we represent at the Yale Law School Veterans Legal Services Clinic, Conley Monk Jr. and his father, the late Conley Monk Sr., served in the Vietnam War and in World War II, respectively. And they were both, like many other black veterans, put through this discriminatory system. And for the first time, a federal court has recognized that these veterans deserve to have their day in court. So this is a monumentous development for black veterans in this country.
Do you have the data that shows the number of black vets that have been discriminated against? Is this a class action lawsuit? Have others joined Monk in this suit?
We definitely have data, and it's no secret at this point that there have been significant discrepancies in terms of grant rates between black veterans and white veterans, and in terms of, sorry, I forgot the second part of your question.
Yeah, in terms of, again, if you're saying that this goes beyond him, have you established, are you seeking a class? Are you asking other black veterans who this has happened to be a part of this, or is this a singular lawsuit?
So in this lawsuit, there are class claims that there is a class of similarly situated veterans that have experienced discrimination, and we're looking to ultimately get that class certified, but that hasn't happened yet. So at the moment, we're only representing Conley Monk Jr., Conley Monk Sr., and the National Veterans Council for Legal Redress, which is an organization that Conley Monk co-founded to help advocate for veterans. We're hoping that becomes broader ultimately, but that hasn't happened at this point.
Are you soliciting others? Are people sending you information? Are you compiling names and contact lists of other black veterans? So if class is certified, then you've already collected the data.
We have a number of black veterans that we already have data on who have filed similar claims. So we know that there are, in terms of the numbers, there are significant numbers out there, and we do have that.
Significant thousands, tens of thousands.
I can't get into sort of the exact numbers right now, but we know that there are a significant number of black veterans out there.
So the federal courts did not move to dismiss. So what's the next legal action?
Yeah, so the next step essentially is we'll have to go through the discovery process and go through the process of actually getting additional information from the VA to help substantiate the claims that we made in the complaint. And, we're sort of hoping that through that process, some of this information that has been sort of withheld from the public will be able to come out. And ultimately, as I mentioned, we hope that this becomes a prosecute at some point down the line. And ultimately there will be sort of discussion about that, but that hasn't occurred yet.
All right then, OLu, we surely appreciate it. Keep us abreast of what happens next.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Robert, I'm going to start with you. The thing here, when we talk about cases like this, see, this is where I love when these white conservatives and these pseudo-black people go, there is no systemic racism. Those things don't exist in the country. I mean, we love everybody equally.
This is part of the revisionist history that exists within America, because the reason they have to keep that lie going is that as long as they can continue it going, that means they don't have to do anything about it. The moment that you admit that America is a systemically racist country, the moment that you admit that race, as Condoleezza Rice said, was the fundamental birth defect of this nation, well, then that means you also have a responsibility to take military actions that will be necessary to undo the damage done by such in the form of, as we've been saying, reparations. And that's what the big conversation is around this. The reason they have to keep financing these new black folks to go out here and say there's no such thing as racism is because they have to keep that fundamental fiction of American society going, that it's only black folks who lazily just sat around not wanting to do anything, and that's why their neighborhoods are in conditions that they are in. But they got where they were based on merit. This is the whole DEI conversation we're having currently. Didn't earn it, saying that any programs that are made that will actually benefit and uplift African American communities are this atrocious affront to meritocracy. But if you just get a job because your dad owned the company, or because you went to the same school as the president of the company, or in the same fraternity, etc., well, that's being based on merit, and therefore you deserved it. Or if you're the beneficiary of several centuries of slavery, and that's what your family's wealth is built on, well, that's of course built on merit also. This is the lie that they continue to tell, because if they don't continue telling it, then they know they will have to pay up. It's our job to break that cycle and understand that the way that we fix the problem isn't by ignoring it, by sticking our fingers in our ear, by blinding ourselves. It's about actually fixing the problem and paying up to those communities that have been subjugated by America for centuries.
So here's my question, Julian. Where are all of these people who say they love the vets and love the soldiers? Where are the veterans organizations? Where are all of these people who are always talking about, oh, don't you dare take a knee, stand in support of our soldiers? Okay, where y'all at supporting this brother?
This brother and so many others, when we go back and look at the history of the Veterans Administration, what we find is that it's foundationally racist, foundationally. When brothers left World War II after the passage of the Veterans Act, in Mississippi, Roland, we are Mississippi today, so let's just diss Mississippi a little more. Only 600, listen to me, only 600 black men were able to get the veterans benefits that would take them to college. They had to individually go to a veterans board to request educational assistance, which was in the legislation their right. And some brothers who want to go to college were told, well, no, you could go to barber school. You can do this. They were just denied those rights. And it wasn't just Mississippi, of course, but, Mississippi stands out as our racial sore thumb in terms of the treatment of our people, which is why it often baffles me that Mississippians are as quiet as they are about the systematic treatment. But the Veterans Administration, you're right, these Veteran Administration organizations, they call you on Veterans Day, can you make a contribution? They call you, but they're not standing up for black veterans. But black veterans were never treated fairly. Let's not forget that veterans were lynched, some cases in uniform, that Vernon Woodward was blinded in his uniform because he asked the bus to stop so he could use the bathroom. That was considered impertinent. And so the sheriff in that town coming down from D.C. down through the South, blinded him with his billy club, and then poured liquor on him so that he could be arrested for being drunk and disorderly. There has been no systematic respect for the uniform unless it was a white man in a uniform. A black man in a uniform could just as soon be lynched, killed, or anything else because the uniform made some white people think that he was uppity. And so I applaud this brother for bringing the lawsuit and Yale for helping him. But let's be clear. This is just a tip of the iceberg. There is so much more.
Rebecca?
You know, June 14th, 1952, my mom was literally born inside the public housing projects in Omaha, Nebraska. Why? Because my grandfather was denied VA benefits. And it wasn't just him, but it was many Black vets in Omaha, Nebraska who weren't able to access benefits that some Black vets were able to, but largely Black vets across the country weren't able to access the GI Bill. So what I'm curious with this particular lawsuit, how far back, is he going to go? Because I think that it's more than just tens of thousands. It's probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, Black vets who ought to have reparations for serving this country and then not getting the promises that this country said that they would receive upon them serving and sometimes giving up their life for this country.
All right, folks. And real quick.
And Roland, just to remember, the Black veterans of the American Revolutionary War were promised their freedom, often by their generals, to convince them to fight against the British who had offered to free the slaves. They didn't get that either. As old as this country is, the disrespect for Black veterans is just as old.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media and investment. This next generation social app has already raised $10 million and has just opened a new round to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.